Now, my goal in this video is to make you a very confident and proficient practitioner of triangles in mounted situations. A big part of that is learning to use a hand assist. Remember, what you're fighting against when you first start your mounted triangle journey is the natural inclination we all have to believe that you're trading a dominant top position for potentially falling onto your back with nothing. And it's a hard sell. You know, you got a talented young athlete, you tell him, okay, you've fought so hard for this mounted position, you've taken him down, you've passed his guard, you've transitioned into mount, you're already winning the match, and now you want me to slip off his chest and potentially, if I miss my triangle, I'm on bottom position. Why? Because you can finish the match this way if you know what you're doing. That's why. I want you to pursue submission out of your pins instead of just being happy with the pins. And if you play your cards right with the mounted triangle, there's going to be very, very few people getting out. A big part of how you're going to become a superior practitioner with the mounted triangle is the use of a hand assist. Let's have a look at this right now. Okay. Once we get up, I'll just demonstrate this out of a basic step over method. As we get on top of our training partner and we step over the top, normally we just use the dexterity of our legs to lock triangles. When you're in bottom position, from guard, you normally just use the dexterity of your legs, okay? But in the mounted situation, I am going to strongly encourage all of you in almost every case to lift your opponent's head off the mat and grab your own ankle. Why? Because your hand replaces what will later become the leg. It closes the wedges around your opponent's head. Here, it's an open wedge. If he pulls his elbow, it's gone. If I put my hand in there, it closes it. He goes to pull his elbow, it's stuck. It forms a temporary triangle until I can start bringing my body into a position where I can lock it up and make it a true triangle with my legs, okay? So the hand assist is an intermediary. If I don't use it and I'm fiddling around trying to lock a triangle, he pulls the elbow, it's all gone. But if I'm holding my own ankle, he goes to pull the elbow, it's not going anywhere. And as it were, it makes it so much easier to maneuver into place. It does something else very important. I never want my foot underneath his shoulder blades in a mounted triangle. That's a disaster waiting to happen. If I commit to the back now, you commit with a shitty triangle like so. Now he postures up and it's all gone, okay? I've seen a lot of mounted triangles go wrong that way. When you use a hand assist, you take all that danger out. When you use a hand assist, it pulls your foot in front of his deltoid. Let's change this angle, right? I want my foot in front of his deltoid, there. And the hand assist makes this so easy, so that when you do lock your triangle, it's 100% on right from the start. And from here, the strangles are incredibly effective. But if my foot is somewhere down his back, that's just a disaster. So by taking my hand and pulling it up in front of the shoulder, we lock a guaranteed tight triangle every single time, okay? So my word to you is very, very simple. Whenever you can, and in the vast majority of cases, you can, use a hand assist. It does two things. It puts an intermediary closed wedge around your opponent's head and arm, so it's very hard for him to pull his arm free. And it ensures that you pull your foot into the correct position in front of his shoulder instead of over his rhomboids and trapezius muscles. In this way, you ensure that the triangle will be extremely tight and extremely effective before you commit your body into the strangle or get your back touched to the ground. Now we're looking at the idea of creating a strong mounted triangle for you out there. Second big feature. The first feature we looked at was this idea that we should always use a hand assist whenever we can. And in the vast majority of cases, you definitely can. Now, second one, forward bias. Obvious question, what the fuck does that mean? We're in the mounted situation with our training partner. We've managed to use, I'm just demonstrating out of a step over method, but this will apply to all the methods that we look at. From here, when we go to lock up on our training partner, you can lean in different ways. Never lean back. okay, and commit your body backwards. What I want to do is get two things to happen: to get his head off the mat and my foot off the mat. So once we get a hold of our own ankle, everything goes forward this way. That brings his head off the mat and my foot off the mat, so that when I go to lock a triangle, it's effortless. If his head is on the mat and you're trying to lock triangles, it's a freaking disaster. So everything goes forward with your head down to the mat, so that locking a triangle is easy, effortless. Then I just put my two hands on the mat, and from here, the strangle will be very easy indeed, okay? So you should always have a forward bias with your triangles. Let's go slide back this way. However we've done it, I never want to fall back like this, okay? I'm not going to say it can't work. It can work, okay? There's been famous examples where it did work, but it can also go completely to hell as well. You don't want something which can work. You want something which is reliably going to work, okay? When you start falling backwards, if he times that elbow pull, you can end up in all kinds of trouble. So my advice to you always, do everything with mounted triangles with a forward bias. Everything goes forward to the mat. With that forward bias, his head comes off the mat and my ankle comes off the mat. So when it's time to lock, it's just so damn easy. You can always come back with your hands after the fact. But if my feet and his head are on the floor and you're trying to fiddle around and lock your feet and your bias is going backwards, it's just a disaster, okay? So, second big point. You're going to become a master of the mounted triangle. Work with a forward bias. Get your forehead to the mat. Everything leans forward. It takes his head off the mat and it gets your foot off the mat. So it's very, very easy from situations like this to lock a triangle. It's much easier to get everything locked up from here than it is from here, okay? Throughout this video, I've been pushing a very particular theme upon you when it comes time to be effective at attacking from the mount. And that's the idea that the 4 submissions that I'm coaching you through in this video all have one great commonality. And that's the idea of pulling your opponent's head off the mat. Now, in the case of the mounted triangle, you have to pull the head off the mat twice. So let's have a look at this and spend some time on it. Again, I'll demonstrate it out of a very basic step over version of the mounted triangle, but this will apply to almost all of them. So understand that when we go to start, if Placido's head is on the floor, it's almost impossible for me to penetrate underneath his head and get my knee to the mat and my leg underneath his head. At some point, I have to get my leg into this position with a knee on the mat and my shin all the way across his shoulder line. Okay? The only way this can happen is if Placido's head comes off the mat, regardless of the type of entry that I use. Again, here, the only weapon I could use would be some form of Judigatami, because his head's on the floor. Okay? But if I want the triangle, I have to bring the head off the mat and expose the back of the neck. Only then can I get the position that I need. Okay? Now, interestingly, that's the first example of getting the head off the mat. Then I have to lock a triangle. When it's time to lock it, it's a weak lock. So I have to bring his head off the mat a second time by touching my forehead to the mat and backheeling with my feet. Only then can I expose my own foot to the figure 4 that I seek. So, step number 1, lift the head off the mat, and as a result, boom, we can step in. Now, lift his head off the mat a second time using my legs so that my foot becomes exposed to the figure of 4. My foot is on the mat. When it's time to lock the figure of 4, it feels impossible. Everything has to be picked up. And now it's an easy strangle. Okay. So just like all the other mounted attacks that we've looked at in this video, you got to start by getting his head off the mat. But in the case of the triangle, you got to do it twice. You got to lift the head to enter the triangle, and then you have to lift the head a second time to lock the figure of 4. So in the case of mounted triangles, lifting the head off the mat becomes even more important than it normally does. As a coach, what I want to be able to do in this video is convince you over time that learning to wrestle your opponent's head and arms with your legs, a triangle essentially, is the best thing you can do for your long-term development. I coach 4 major forms of submission from the mounted position, and I personally believe that for long-term development against guys your own size and skill level, the triangle is one of the most important that you need to develop. And yet there's this problem. When you first start doing it, it's nerve-wracking. You're going from a position of complete dominance, the mounted position, and now you're risking it all on a move where you have to throw your legs up around your opponent's head and arm, and there's a lot of movement involved. That movement is pretty precise, and there's a pretty big danger that you might end up on your back at the end of it. And if your triangle doesn't work, you've just gone from the best position in the sport to bottom position open guard, okay, which is neutral, and if your guard's not your strong point, that might not even be your favorite position at all. So, how are we going to make you believe that this is a risk worth taking? Well, here's some simple rules of risk which will work in your favor and give you a lot more confidence to go for your mounted triangles. Let's have a look at them. Okay, again, I'm just going to demonstrate this one out of a basic step over, but this will apply to all the triangles that we look at. From any situation where we've stepped over our training partner and we're starting to, I'll just take my weight off my face so he doesn't die as I'm talking through this. My God, the poor man is suffering through this video. This is worse than the goddamn leg lock video. Holy smokes. Anyway, from this position,
it's worse than my mother-in-law.
No, nothing's that bad. From this position here, what are some basic rules of risk which will make you guys believe this is a move worth going for, even in a high pressure situation? Okay. First rule of risk: I won't commit my back to the ground unless I have a full figure of 4. Okay. So if I'm on top of my training partner and my feet are just like this, I will never just put my back on the ground because I don't have a figure of 4. There's way too much danger that my opponent could just slip past my knees here and end up in a poor position. Okay? So the first rule is I won't let my back touch the ground unless I have this, the full figure of 4. Now guys, when I say a full figure of 4, I mean my shoelaces in the pocket of my knee. This is not a full figure of 4. This is definitely not it. Okay? I'm talking about a situation where my shoelaces are right there in the pocket of my knee. If Placido comes up on top of me now, it's done. I have 100% confidence now that I'm going to finish here, okay? He's already started to strand it before my back touches the ground. Forget about afterwards, okay? Now, guys, let's understand this. This is a figure of 4 with my shoelaces in my knee and my legs back heeling strongly. This is nothing, okay? Shoelaces right in the pocket of the knee and my legs back heeling. So from a situation where we've stepped over, I've committed and I've locked the figure of the 4. I will fearlessly go to the back now. If he explodes up into me now, I don't give a damn. He tries to stand up to me and pick me up off the floor, I don't give a damn. I'll finish here every time, okay? So that's the first one. If I have a full figure of 4 locked, I have extreme confidence at that point that I don't care if my back goes to the ground or not. It's done, okay? So that's the first rule of risk. If I have figure of 4, that's it. I'm ready to commit, come what may. Whether I finish top, whether I finish bottom is irrelevant. The triangle takes over at that point. Second one, okay, natural question to ask. What if I don't have the full figure of 4? Is there another situation where you might commit your back to the ground fearlessly? Yeah, not as confidently as I just did there, but still pretty confident. That's when I have a hand assist. So if I've stepped over my training partner's arm and I have a hand assist here, I'm not worried about going to my back at this point. Okay, as my knee touches the ground, I don't have the figure of 4. I don't have it. But I just put my knee right there in front. I just touch. And even if Placido did take me over now, I wouldn't be worried because my hand is closing the wedges. So as Placido goes to stand up, I don't have a triangle, but I do have a closed wedge around him. So that when I lock the figure of 4, it's as good as done. Okay? So is it as good as a fully locked figure of 4 with your legs? Nope. But it's pretty damn close. And it will easily enable you to lock the figure of 4 if he does put you on your back and come up on top of you. So once again, from a situation where we've stepped over and I do not have my legs locked, but I do have a grip on my own shin. Okay? If Placido just exploded into me and took me over, I would go down fearlessly. Okay? He tries to wrench his head up, tries to posture up and do all those things that people do, and it's just so easy now to turn in and lock up the figure of 4. Why? Because the hand assist takes his foot from a position, takes my foot, from a position of weakness behind him and brings it in front of the shoulder. Plus, it gives me a closed wedge, a strong Placido. It gives me closed wedges around his head and arm. So when he tries to yank that arm out, and then when I do lock it, it's very, very much a precise lock. So that would be a second example of a situation where I have no fear to commit my back to the ground. Not quite as good as a fully locked figure of 4, but so good that I'm not really concerned. I will be more than happy to go to my back and commit my body to the triangle with that grip in place. Now, the third one, what if I don't have any of that? What if I don't have a hand assist and I don't have a figure of 4? Is there another situation where you would be happy? Yeah, there is. There's more than just your opponent's head involved in a triangle. There's his arm as well. What if I had the position over the top of him, but I didn't have a hand assist, and I didn't have a figure of 4, and maybe even Placido's head is not even off the mat? What would make me willingly go to my back now? This, a lat grip on my training partner's arm. Okay? If I have a lat grip on the arm and Placido comes up on top of me, he's not going anywhere. I have total control of his head with my right leg, even if he comes up on top. When he tries to yank his arm out, it's impossible. There's just too much closure around the arm. If he tries to pressure into me and stack me, he gives me a triangle. If he goes to yank out and away, he gives me an armbar. Okay? It creates a simple dilemma. If he tries to stack you, he's giving you a triangle. If he tries to yank out, he's giving you one of the most brutal three-quarter jigutamis of them all, the lat version, which rips a man's elbow out in a matter of seconds. So let's have a look at that again from another angle. Okay, so now we're talking about a situation where we have successfully stepped over, but we don't really have much going on here, okay? Maybe something as weak as this, okay? And you're like, oh my God, this looks like a disaster. There's no triangle here. I'm not even under his head. I didn't even get his head off the mat. Okay, under these circumstances, let's just put his arm in behind the lat muscle. Okay, go to yank the arm, buddy.
No way.
Even if I don't get the leg over the head, I just get it here, and I fall backwards. It means nothing. Okay, just go to yank your arm up onto your knees. Just yank it out, buddy.
I can't.
You can stand up and walk backwards. Walk backwards.
It's putting more pressure on the arm.
Yeah. Go to stack me. Go to yank out. So that is the third set of conditions under which I don't care if I go to my back, the lat grip, okay? Once you understand the 3 rules of risk, there are 3 situations where I don't give a fuck if my back goes to the ground from the mounted position with a triangle in place. The first, you got a full figure of 4. You lock that figure of 4 properly, it's irrelevant whether you're top or bottom. It's done either way. Second, not quite as good, but almost as good. You got a full hand assist. You're holding your own shin, like so. So that if you did capitulate to your back in either direction, the wedges around the head are sufficiently strong that you're going to be able to lock on a devastating triangle very easily as your back touches the ground. So I'd be completely unafraid to go to my back under those circumstances. The third is where you don't have any kind of triangle. You got no hand assist. You certainly don't have a figure of 4. You might not even have his head off the ground. You might be in a pretty precarious looking position, to be honest with you. And still, you shouldn't be afraid to try. So long as you can stuff his arm behind your lat muscle and lock it into your body. Now you have such a tight connection to the man's arm that you've created a situation where even if your back ended up on the ground and he tried to run away from you, you're connected to his arm. You're like a pit bull on it. If he tries to come in and bulldoze his way out, he's giving you a triangle. You can't take that option. If he tries to pull his arm free, throw your leg over his head and turn it into a vicious 3-quarter jujigutami that'll snap his arm like a matchstick. Once you understand those 3 rules of risk and understand there's 3 conditions under which top and bottom position is largely irrelevant, you're going to have a lot more confidence to go forward into those high mount positions, get to your senkaku or triangle positions, and go for your attacks. Now, we've seen some interesting theory with regards to mounted triangle. Now it's time to get down into the actual practice of it so you can go out into the gym tomorrow and start doing this on your training partners. The first method I'm going to show you involves wrist control and pushing a wrist down. This is probably the single most well-known and often used method of going into mounted triangles. It's, as it were, the industry standard method of going in. It's a good method. It's a solid method. It works very well at all levels. Let's use this as our starting point. So here we are. We've got an opponent underneath us, and we're going to work our way through the 4-step method. Okay, if we were just working against people that maybe weren't so good at submission grappling, you could just go straight from here. Okay, you could just kind of work your way up, get a hold of your training partner and just step your body right in. Okay, so it wouldn't take much of a setup. But as I said throughout this video, I'm not interested in you guys submitting people that aren't very good at submission grappling. I'm interested in you submitting people that are really good at submission grappling. And that means we've got to work our way through the 4-step method of attack. Okay, so we're going to start off with our training partner. Step number 1, as you all know, is to get to the underhook. Step number 2 is to walk everything up and achieve elbow separation. Step number 3 is to go into your control grip. In this case, it's going to be the single chest wrap. From here, we can very often shrug our training partner's arm on by, and then we can start coming up like so. Now, let's change our angle so you can see what's going on here. Once we come up and my knee locks all the way up his shoulder, I start to observe my training partner's second arm. In this case, it's Placido's right arm. Okay. From here, I have an outside grip. I come up and catch the head. Okay, so I have a free hand now. If Placido goes to wildly bridge around, I'm based out on my hand. Now I observe his wrist. I see its position and I take top hand position. My hand on top of his wrist, and I stuff it down to his chest. As I do so, I come up into a high hip position, and I physically throw my leg right into place. As I make the throw, I pull up on the head and elevate it. Okay, so we were here with a chest wrap. I brought my knee up to his shoulder. We came into a high mount position. From here, I seized my training partner's wrist. As I seize the wrist, I pull up on the head and I just throw my leg around the corner. The second we throw the leg around the corner, we commit to the forward bias that brings our knee down to the mat. And I bring my knee over the top like so. From here, we look for our hand assist. My hand grabs my own ankle. And as a result, we can bring our forehead down to the mat and start bringing our training partner's head off the mat for the second time. Now we lock up the figure of 4. As Placido tries to work from this position, I always recommend to come back up and balance over your training partner's chest and head like so. Now, to strangle, I just back heel my two legs, we get to strangle. If your opponent is so explosive that he's going to turn you over and you feel your balance being compromised, always roll forwards whenever possible. So if Placido tries to take me backwards,
To your left.
to my right, Placido, to my right from the situation, I keep my head forward in a forward bias, so he can't do that. So the only way he can take me is in the direction of my forward bias. As he does so, I reach, he explodes into me, and other way, and I explode my hand on through. Because I have the figure of four, I'm not afraid to commit my back to the ground. He goes to stand up, pull me off the floor. I'm always scooping inside his leg, and we get the strangle for the finish. So once again, the 4-step method.
I was bridging the wrong way.
Yes, no problem. Next time. So from here, underhook starts it all. We walk up, get control of the head, lock up. From this position, I bring my knee all the way up, my second knee all the way up. If he's trying to escape from here, I just keep my base, keep my position until I feel I'm starting to tire out a little. Now I bring my hand here and I hold my opponent. I get a hold of my training partner's wrist. Now I come up and in one motion, I just throw everything over the top, pulling up on the head. My whole thing here is to back heel my foot to my knee and get a hold of my own shin. Now we commit to the forward bias, like so. So I'm stable. Remember guys, if you're sitting on your partner's chest, even with a hand assist, you're unstable. If he turns into me, I can be taken over. Okay? So always from here, there is a forward bias. So when he turns into me, it's worthless. From here, I commit my head to the mat and lock up the figure of four. If he was so explosive that he turned up now
To your right.
to your right,
My right.
it would mean nothing. We'd go right into a full figure of four and finish. Okay? Sorry, it's all very disorientating from your perspective. It's like you're in a triangle.
I'm just trying to breathe. Never mind,
Yeah.
figure out what's his left and my left.
My apologies, buddy. So, one more time, champ. So, let's come this way so the camera can pick up some details. Okay. We've seen that from the underhook and crossface, we walk everything up north, we go into our single chest wrap, and we hold the position. We walk up into a high mount. Placido goes to take me over, goes to elbow escape, goes to kip escape, all those things that people do, and we're holding on here. Now I catch the wrist. I step and throw. Everything's about that forward bias, and we catch a hold with the hand assist. Now, I commit even more to lifting my training partner's head off the mat a second time. Look how every time we come forward, his head comes off the mat. That action of leaning forward is what does it. Now from here, we lock. I never want to go back this way. I'm not going to say never. It's undesirable to go backwards. So I have my body weight forwards. So if Placido tries to turn towards me, other way, buddy, it's not going to happen. The only way he could conceivably escape is to take me the other way. But it doesn't matter. The full figure of four is locked in place and it's done. So that's working out of the 4-step method. Now, I'm also going to show you guys a speed method that doesn't involve the full figure of four. Why? Because not all of your opponents are high level. Okay, you're not always fighting Gordon Ryan or Craig Jones or Nicky Ryan or someone like that. A lot of your opponents are less experienced, and you may not have to go through the whole 4-step procedure. Against the best guys, you probably will. But if, as I said, not everyone you fight is a world champion. So sometimes you just see spontaneous opportunities and you just go right in. So let's look now at a slightly simplified method, which doesn't involve the whole 4-step procedure. Okay, this time, all I'm going to do is bring one side up. like so. So here I was in the mounted position, just like so. And then from here, I brought one side up. All I need is his elbow outside my hip. The one thing that will screw it up is if Placido's elbow is inside my hip. That I won't accept, okay? So in any way, if I'm working from here, if I can get his elbow just to the outside, we're good. His elbow's outside my hip. Good to bring it back inside, Placido. Nope, it's tough, okay? Because I went from standard mount, like so, and I saw an opportunity, elbows in, buddy. I saw an opportunity from here to bring my knee up to his shoulder, and he goes to bring it back. Very, very difficult, okay? Now, just right from here, I go through inside position, strong. I don't go here. He grabs my bicep, he has inside position. Okay, so I go inside and I capture my buddy's head. So the arm's well trapped. Okay, now I just grab his other wrist and push it down. I go into a position kind of like a dog pissing on a tree and catch. Okay, now from here, there's the hand assist that we always look for. You've also got the lat grip. So in worst case scenario, it all went to hell, you still have that devilishly strong grip. He tries to pull away,
It makes it tight.
yeah, it gets broken. He tries to stack me, he gets strangled. Okay? So, we've got an opponent here. I lift, and I get my knee up to his rear deltoid. Okay? As he goes to hike me off, goes to kip escape, etc. We thread everything through it. I capture the head almost like a collar tie, and I lift it off the floor. Again, that same theme that just keeps coming back. Get that damn head off the floor. Okay? From this position, I catch the wrist on the other side, and now we're in the perfect position to throw on through. From the throw, forward bias. From the throw, hand assist if necessary. At some point, we've got to get that head off the floor. And the forward bias makes it easy. Best scenario from here is always to strangle from the mounted position. Okay? If that's not possible, because for whatever reason we get shucked over, if you're going to roll forwards, not backwards. And as a result, you'll end up in a perfect position to strangle this guy out on the mat. Okay? So that's the speed version. What are the main differences? You down, Placido? Speed version has a faster but weaker setup. Okay? The 4-step approach creates situations where there's total control. So when he goes to slide out, goes to kip, goes to elbow escape, there's no way. It's all stuck. Now from here, we catch. Okay? When we make the catch, make sure your head is over this knee. Don't have your head in the middle. Then you feel like a horrible step. Okay? Put your head over the knee. So that when you step, boom, it goes right in. There's your hand assist. Forward bias. Locking up the figure of 4. And then from here, strangle for the finish. So that's the 4-step method. Speed method. All you got to do is get his elbow to the outside. We catch. We get his head off the floor. I catch his opposite wrist, stuff it, catch. Forward bias. Now we're in the perfect position to lock up the figure of 4. Okay? So this involves wrist control, push down method. Arguably the fastest and the most commonly seen method. We saw 2 versions. We saw the version which obviously I would advocate against high-level opponents, which utilizes the whole 4-step method that we advocate in this video. The second is very useful, perhaps when you have less experienced opponents who don't know so much about submission. Just get a hold of the head, stuff it, bang, go straight in. Understand always the basic rules of risk. Use a hand assist whenever you can. Make sure everything involves a forward bias with the head so that you roll in the directions that you control. And as early as possible, make sure you get that figure of four lock, or failing that, a lat grip around your opponent's arm to make it very, very difficult for him to pull away from you. Now, we're looking at the idea of going into the mounted triangle. We're starting to look at actual methods that you'll be using in training and competition. Let's look now at the alternative to pushing in, where we have top hand position and push in. Now we take inside hand position and push our opponent's hand out. Okay, so we'll just change the angle a little bit. Okay, in the previous move, we were able to get the head off the ground and get top hand position and push the hand down so we could step over and into the triangle. This time, we're going to take inside position and push the hand out. Why is this a viable means of operating? Because essentially what we're doing is we're working against the weak rotator cuff muscles of the arm. Okay, when I push the end of the lever outwards, I'm fighting my body weight against those weak rotator cuff muscles at the back of the arm. And this is going to create situations where we can lift the head and separate a big gap between his hand and his head, through which I step over with my leg and get to the win. Okay, now what do we need on the other side? I need to get inside position with my knee under his armpit, and I must force his elbow to the outside position. So as we start in front of our training partner, we're going to go through and establish head control. From here, I'll just change the angle a bit. Okay, so he's in a tight defensive position. I go through and I get to my training partner's head. I go through and lock up just the head by itself. Now from here, I give a little lift and I bring my knee up into my training partner's armpit, just like so. So now his elbow is locked in the outside position. When he goes to pull his right arm back inside, it's very, very difficult. Now I hold one-handed, just like so. Changing the angle again. So we've trapped our training partner's left arm. Now from here, I put my head on the floor. And as a result, I see an opportunity to push the wrist outwards. Previously, the hand was in, so we pushed it down. Now we see an opportunity to push the wrist in an outwards direction. And as a result, we're in a good position now to take our body across to the other side and step our foot onto our training partner's bicep. This is the two-stage method. Now from here, we kick over the top and slide our knee into good attacking position. As you probably guessed by now, once we get to a position like this, we go to our hand assist. Then we enact the forward bias that brings my knee to the mat and my head forward to the floor. That takes Placido's head off the mat and enables us to lock up a tight figure of four. From this position, we rock back and strangle with our legs. So once again, our opponent's in front of us. I go inside, and control my training partner's head. I lift the elbow and slide forward. I control the head and start lifting it off the mat. Other hand out here for base. I see an opportunity to push my training partner's hand down. From these situations, I lift and I step my foot either in one or all together, two, and lock. I grab a hold of my own shin. With that hand assist in place, I get my knee to the mat and I go forwards, committing my body down to the mat. That lifts his head and my foot off the ground and enables us to lock a tight figure of four. Now we bring everything up and strangle for a very strong finish. Seen from another angle, let's go further down the mat. Placido's in good tight defensive position. Elbows in good disciplined position by side. I go inside, lift, knee position. From here, I stuff everything down towards the floor. And then from here, I lift up on my training partner's head, turn the corner just enough so I can get my leg over the top and get to that hand assist. From here, the hand assist in place, I bring everything forward. And as a result, I can lift his head off the mat and expose my foot to the figure of four. And from here, we get very tight strangulations. Now, just a word to the wise. Okay, once we've trapped our training partner's arm in like so. One good way to do things here is just to stand over our training partner's foot. Why? Because this enables you to turn your foot down to that armpit and get a nice kick over. The head is elevated. So when he tries to pull the head back, it's tough. Makes for a very easy catch. Don't make your head move back away from me, Placido.
Like posture?
Yeah, exactly. Go back. Okay. Watch what happens here. If I just try to reach for my shin while Placido's head moves back, he crushes my hand. Don't do that. Move your elbow first. Put your elbow behind his head. So when he goes to move the head back,
It doesn't even move.
it doesn't work. Okay? If I just use my hand, his head is stronger, especially when he bridges and I lose it. So I put my elbow behind. So when he goes to bridge, my hand assist still holds him in place. That enables us to go forward into our forward bias, get his head off the mat, and strangle for the finish. Okay, very important detail. Let's show that detail from another angle, Placido.
Facing this way.
Yeah, good. So, Placido's in good defensive position like he should be. Penetrate inside, lock up. Lift the elbow, come up and block. From here, we step the arm down, okay? Now, as I walk my body all the way up north, I lift Placido's head off the mat, and I make my body light by leaning over this knee. As a result, I can step my foot right over the top. Now from here, open, elbow goes behind the head. Don't go from here, he bridges, and I lose control. Put the elbow in behind. Now, there's my hand assist. Now my knee comes down to the mat. There's my forward bias. Off that forward bias, my leg is easily exposed to the figure of four. And then from this position, the straddle is set. Now, you have a clear choice here between standing on the bicep, that's one good way of doing it, or just throwing your leg right in over the top. I personally prefer just throwing the leg in over the top. I'll just demonstrate what it would look like in a full sequence. Now, it's other way, Placido.
Facing this way.
Hit this way, no. Hit this way, feet this way. It's confusing.
We got there eventually.
Yeah.
That's half the instruction right there.
Yeah.
Just
That's the thing we are. We're locked up in front of a training partner. We bring the hand inside. We lift. We bring the second hand inside, and you have control of the head now. Now, I lift up on the, give me the elbows for free, buddy. From here, I get a hold of the elbows, and I start pulling them up. I may have to lean forward to do so, but ultimately, I want my knee coming up to the line of the shoulders, okay? Once we do that, we start finding the opposite wrist. I push with my head down to the floor, like so. But when I use the step over method, I'm going to bring the opposite knee forward and lean over my own leg. That's what makes this leg here nice and light. If I'm leaning forward, you feel very awkward and give too much space stepping over. So I bring everything over to the side, leaning over my lead knee. As a result, I can pick his head up towards me, and then from here I just throw my foot right over the top and step into the space. Don't try to lock the triangle from this side of the body. Lean forward and put your knee down to the mat. Get a hold of your own shin. Pick everything up off the floor, and there's your finish with a nice tight figure of four. So one time at full speed now. Placido's in a good, sound defensive position like he should be. Punch the hand through, lift and get to the head. I punch the second hand through. Now we've got control of our training partner's head. We lift up on the elbow, we start coming up north. I get a hold of the training partner, and now we're in the perfect position to go to work. Leaning over to the side, I lift Placido's head over, and as a result, we can quickly step on through. I grab a hold of my own shin, lean well forwards, and there's a strong strangulation finish. Okay. Now, you might be asking, yeah, that was cool, but you didn't do that from the four-step method. Okay. Now, slight modification using the four-step method. So now we've got a higher level of opponent who is not an easy person to hold down, and now we have to work systematically through the four methods so we can hold them long enough to get to our move. Okay. We know by now, step number one always involves getting to that underhook. cross face and walking everything up north. As we start that action of walking up north, we bring the arm up, we get into this very powerful control position. So when Placido tries to escape, this control grip makes it almost impossible. Even more so when we start coming up here, okay, right up on top of our training partner. You've got excellent control of this guy from this position. He tries to elbow escape, so tough. He tries to bridge, he tries to kip.
There's nothing to kip on.
It's just so difficult. You're just too far away from it. Okay. Now, with all that in mind, let's change the angle. Now, from here, I bring the head down. I get a hold of my training partner, and I start pushing out. From here, I bring everything straight on through and step. Now we're in the perfect position to exhibit that forward bias. It brings his head off the mat and exposes my foot to the figure of 4. And as a result, very tight strangles. Okay, so that's how we'd use the same move out of our 4-step systematic method. I've been trying to portray mounted triangles as going in a fork, 2 different directions. There's 2 ways of approaching the whole move. And that's the idea that some people like to step over. They trap their opponent's arm and step over the arm, whether they push it down or whether they push it to the outside. And it's a good method. It's probably the most commonly used method in jiu-jitsu. Definitely one you want to invest a lot of time in perfecting. But it's also no secret that I prefer knee slide methods. The basic reasoning is that knee slide methods are inherently tighter in practice than step over methods are. They're slower, but they're tighter. Like everything in jiu-jitsu, there's always a trade-off. You want to be the fastest guy in the gym with mounted triangles, you use step overs. You want to be the tightest guy, then you use knee drive methods. Now, we're going to start off with probably the most well-known version of the knee drive. This is kind of like the industry standard. It's not my favorite method, but it works for a lot of people, and it's something you should definitely know. So let's have a look at it now. Okay, Placido's in a good defensively sound position, and I'll demonstrate it first just out of basic inside position, and then I'll show how it would work out of the 4-step method. Okay, we've done a good job of coming up on our training partner. We've got head control, and we've lifted the elbow out of position. And as a result, my knee has come all the way up to Placido's shoulder line, and we've got him well trapped. Okay, now I'm going to take my opponent's hand either down, out, or down like so, depending on where his hand is. All 3 of them are effective. Okay, so if he's got a hand on my chest, for example, I might just push it straight down. If he's got a hand on my shoulder, I might just push it straight out. If he's got a hand pushing on my knees, I might just push it down like so. However it's happened, I'm going to put my head on the floor, and I'm going to take my knee over Placido's shoulder and bicep. From this position, we're going to build for height. I'm going to put my hand on the floor and start lifting. I'm going to take my knee around the corner, and my second leg is going to come up. I'm going to go 2-on-1, 2 hands on the head. With my leg up like so, I've now done a good job of lifting the head. Guys, once again, it's that common theme in all these mounted attacks. Get your opponent's head off the mat. It's in all the attacks we've looked at. This is no different. From here, as we lift everything off the mat, I get to join my ankle and my knee. And as a result, I can pass my foot over the top of my training partner's head. From here, I push off the mat, and then I just switch my leg around the corner and I drop to a shoulder. Okay, now I'm sure you can all guess why this is not my favorite method. Because I've committed my body to the ground without a figure of 4, without a hand assist, and as a result, there is some danger. The good news is you've got his head under your control. That's the good news. Okay? As Placido comes up, I want to catch. Pull my foot in front of his shoulder, so you have a closed wedge around his head. You have his arm overwrapped. That's the good news. You do have a good overwrap on the arm. When he goes to yank away from me, it won't be easy because my elbow is over his elbow. And as a result, we can lock the figure of 4, and there's a pretty tight triangle now. He goes to stand up, goes to work his way up, pull me along the mat, and do all those things that people do, and we go in and we get the finish, okay? So it's a good, fast initial method of getting to a triangle. It does have the disadvantage that you are committing your back to the ground without full closure around the head, okay? That doesn't mean it can't work. This means that there is additional risk. So once again, step number one, we go inside position and lock, just in like so. I tie up my training partner's head. From here, I lift his elbow and bring my knee up to his shoulder line. Now, however we do it, we push the hand down and I step my knee over the top. Now we start that action of building for height. I lift the head. I slide my knee behind his head like a pillow, and then I bring my second foot up. And as a result, my foot and my knee join. Now as my foot goes over the bicep, I just lift, straighten my leg, and commit my shoulder to the mat. Just like so. Now, guys, when he goes to get up, it's kind of awkward for him because my legs are facing against his ability to get up. If my legs face up to the ceiling, he could get up very quickly. But when Placido goes to get up,
It is awkward, yeah.
it's actually kind of tough. Even as he fights to get up, my hand is ready to pull everything across. And that's the saving grace of the method. Go back down. The other saving grace is my elbow traps his arm. So even if I had nothing and he went to stand up and walk away, the fact that I have his elbow walking backwards forms a pretty good connection. Walking backwards, buddy. Forms a pretty good connection. And if I grab my own shin, so much the better. I pull my foot in front of Placido's shoulder so that his shoulder disappears. Here, if you can see Placido's shoulder, it's a weak triangle. Now, he goes to yank away. It's going to be very, very tight and deep. There's the strangle. You can't even see his shoulder. And it's done. So one more time from a different angle. Look. Down the mat. He's in a defensively responsible position, inside position. Okay? No matter how tight his arms are in, you can always get that hand inside. So your elbow has the inside position. My elbow inside his elbow. Okay? It's not enough just to put my hand in. He can pommel and replace it. What I want when I talk about inside position, it's my elbow. My hand leads the way, but it's my elbow that takes the inside position. Now I lift it and I bring my knee up. So when he tries to get his elbow back inside, it's almost impossible. Now from here, I stuff in any given direction and I put my knee over his shoulder. Then we build for height, turning, lifting, my foot and my knee almost touching. I step over his bicep. I bring everything up and I build for more height. Now I just take my leg and extend it across. And my legs point out. So when he goes to scramble up, it's slow. It gives me a good cut across. I make his shoulder disappear. My arm is over his arm. He goes to yank out, stands up, tries to pull me off the mat. It's very, very difficult. And as a result, you get an immensely tight strangle. Okay? Now, you might be asking, okay, I can see that would work. There seems to be some good elements. That is the standard method of using the knee drive. Okay? It's a good method. It's a solid method. Done in the way we just described, it'll work well all the way up to championship level. One word to the wise, it's almost always a good idea to control your opponent's head because it does have the big disadvantage that you are committing to a shoulder and back without the risk mitigators that we looked at earlier. Okay, so there is innately more risk involved. So make sure you control the head. You can do that by holding the head itself, but the best of all is to hold your own shin and use the hand assist. That's the best way to do it because it creates closed wedges around your opponent's head. Now, you're probably asking at home, okay, that's cool. Show me how you would do that out of your 4-step method. No problem. Let's look at it right now. Okay, I'll set you down, Jim. same move, but we start off, step number one, you all know it, get the underhook. Cross face. Step number two, walk the arm so the elbow goes up above the shoulder line. From situations like this, you can either work like so, or you can shrug the arm forward and come up. My knee high up in Placido's armpit, his elbows in tight defensively. From here, look how we push everything down to the mat. I take my knee over the top of my training partner's head. As a result, we're able to start that action of turning the corner on our training partner. I'll demonstrate from the other side so you can start to see some of these angular changes. We've done a good job of coming up on our training partner like so. However we do it, look how I bring my head forward and then I just bring my knee over the top of my training partner's bicep. Okay, so once again, we've done a good job of forcing the hand down to the mat. We've done a good job of securing an initial underhook and a cross face. From here, we walked everything up north. We got a hold of our training partner's head. We shrugged everything forward. We put our head to the mat. Look how I take my knee and I bring it over the top of his bicep. When Placido tries to pull his arm out, it's almost impossible. Now, I bring everything up and lock. I turn the corner and put my foot right there next to my knee. Now, from that initial kickoff position, look how I climb up for height. As we make the climb, we come around with the foot and we catch right here. So I can pull my foot all the way across in front of his shoulder. As he comes up, we lock the figure of four. And there is our standard finishing position. So that's just the modification, putting it in the context of our four-step approach to the mounted situation. Understand that the four-step approach has a distinct advantage in terms of physical tightness to an opponent, because your forehead is on the mat and your knees are in a position so high in the mount that any kind of kipping, elbow, or bridging escape is well nigh impossible. So, from a situation where we have the underhook in place and we've walked everything up, and from here we've gotten into our standard control position. Look, I put my head forward and work my way up north. He can put his arm in any plate position you want, left arm anywhere you want, buddy. You can bring it in close, you can do whatever you want. All that's required is I take my knee and punch it over the top and lock up his body defensively. From here, we start that action of building up for height, getting the knees in close. Once we do so, we bring our leg around the corner and catch hold of our own shin. Because we're holding the shin, it's very easy to make his shoulder disappear. And when we lock the figure of four, very tight finishes are easy. So this is kind of like the industry standard method of working, and a damn good method of working. It does have the minor drawback that the risk mitigators that we looked at earlier in the video are absent to some degree when you use this method, but an acceptable degree. It's not terrible. And you can take care of that by looking to that hand assist after you hit the mat. Make sure your knees point in the opposite direction. Your feet and knees point in the opposite direction of his ability to come up to his base. That will slow him down and give you more time to control the triangle. Now, we're looking at this idea of going into the mounted triangle. As a general rule, I prefer knee slide methods. Remember that the whole process of going into the triangle from the mounted position goes in two different directions. You can either use step over methods or you can use knee slide methods. I generally prefer knee slide methods because they are tighter in operation. They're slower, but they're tighter. And generally in no-gi submission grappling, I tend to favor tightness over speed. Now, let's look at a method quite different from the standard method where we drop to a shoulder. This time we're going to use a pivoting method, which has the great advantage that it does a much better job of keeping you in top position. Instead of committing my shoulder to the mat, which means I immediately lose the battle for height, and now I I have to finish from the bottom position. There's no choice. I can stay in the top position using this method. Let's have a look at it. Okay, Placido is down, arms in a good defensive position. I'll demonstrate it first just from basic inside position, and then I'll demonstrate it out of the 4-step method. So we go through, we lift our training partner's elbow up, we go forward on our man just like so. Now from here, however we do it, we're able to post on our training partner and bring our knee over our training partner's bicep and shoulder like so. We've seen this idea that we can put our hand on the floor and start the action of pivoting and turning our body through. Okay. Now from this position, as I pull up on my training partner's head, we bring our foot and our knee together and my foot comes over the top of his arm. Now previously we sat down to a shoulder, and the disadvantage of this was that you've committed your back to the ground. Okay, it wasn't a terrible thing because your legs are facing the opposite direction of his movement, and it means it's pretty easy for us to get a hold of our own shin or hold his head and get into situations where we can lock up the figure of 4. Okay, so that was the previous move. Now this time when we go in on our training partner, we've come up north and we'll put our knee in top. This time, as we come up and we hit that pivot, instead of committing our shoulder to the mat, we're going to come around on our training partner, and I'm just going to ask you guys to take your 2 feet and just lock them, just like so. So now you've got 2 free hands, and his head is now trapped by your legs. So you're just kind of sitting on top of the guy. Because I have 2 free hands, I can use them on the floor, like so. I can hold my training partner's head, and then I can just unlock my legs and pivot into top position. Now we're in that perfect position to go into that forward lean. The forward bias brings Placido's head off the floor a second time, exposes my foot to the figure of 4, and gives us very strong finishes. Let's do that from the opposite angle, Placido. So we start off inside position, elbows in, Placido. We give a good lift. We bring our knee up to the shoulder line. From here, we knee drive across our training partner. We build for height. Off that height, I bring my foot around the corner, hold on my training partner, and then from here, pivot out. From this position, foot comes in, second foot steps over it. So now you have hands free. If Placido turns to the right, my hand blocks him. If Placido turns to the left, my hand blocks him. So you're pretty stable. I grab a hold of his head. I use my hand on the floor for stability, and then I just pivot a second time. So from here, you're fairly stable, hand on the floor, hand on his head. Look how you just pivot. Off that pivot, there's your hand assist. He goes to move. You're completely stable. Forehead on the mat, lift, lock. From the lock, Placido goes to move out and strangles. Head facing the camera, Placido. Coming down the mat. So we go in, we get the inside position. There's my good knee position. There's my knee drive. We start building for height, turning, pivoting, getting my knee behind him as a wedge. When Placido goes to pull his arm free, everything's in so tight. Now I just sweep my foot around and touch. I build for height a second time. I bring my foot around the corner. Now hands are free. I catch my training partner by the head. I pivot a second time and slide through. I lean forward, catching, lifting, locking, building for height. Placido goes to bridge, turning left and right. It means nothing. One strangle and it's done. Okay. Camera, could you please close in on the pivot, the first pivot? There's 2 pivots involved here. Okay. The first pivot applies to almost every knee slide, so it's very important you guys get this right. Okay. The second pivot only applies to this particular move, and it's also important you get right for just this particular move. So let's have a look at this again. Okay. It's important you understand this, guys, and I want to impress upon you why I prefer knee slide methods over step over. Okay, that's not to say I don't like step overs. They're great. They work well, but they're just not as tight. Okay, in a high level competition, it's safe at a knee slide. So we start off. I lift Placido's elbow so I can get my knee in good position. Then I come in. I put my head on the floor for stability. So if Placido's trying to thrash his way out of here, it won't be easy. Now from here, we push and I knee slide over the top. I put my hand on the mat and I lift. My whole thing is I want my knee behind his head like a pillow. Because we're underneath, I can make the other leg light, like so. And as this leg becomes light, I can touch my foot to my knee. Now I lift the head and bring my second foot out. And this is the catch right here. I shift my weight, catch the head, and then a second pivot that puts us in the perfect position to go into our forward bias. As his head comes off the mat, we lock the figure of four, and it's done. Okay? I'm dreadfully sorry, Pussy. Just one more pivot. One day, I'm going to fucking kill Danaher. You know that's what he's thinking right now. I'm just waiting for my day of revenge, and when it comes, it will be the sweetest day of my life. So, if they ever find my body cut into hundreds of pieces and dumped in the waters of Puerto Rico, we'll know what happened. So, we come in here and lock up. My knee comes in all the way up to the shoulder. We lock and knee drive. The whole key is that first build for height. We lift and turn. I've got to fill this space with my knee. Now, once you fill that space, it's like, Placido, try to touch the back of your head on the ground. It's physically impossible. It's just not going to happen. Okay? Placido, try to turn in this direction and off balance me. Try to turn to your right and off balance me. It's like the ultimate mount. You're so secure here. Try to elbow escape. I mean, it's just impossible. Try to kipping escape. It's impossible. The only thing you could conceivably have is a flexible guy could throw legs up and try and catch you and just brush it off. Okay. Now from here, I make one leg light. I base the floor and I touch my own knee. I base on the floor and pivot. So now you have two hands to move your body around. You have a hand to hold his head, and then you make a second pivot. Off that second pivot, I take Placido's head off the mat, and I expose my foot to the figure of four. And we get that perfect strangle. Not the most pleasant move to drill, but I promise you, get this one down and you'll find it becomes one of your absolute favorite methods. The knee slide, done as I just characterized it, creates situations where you have what can only be termed an ultimate mount. It's a mount with a head and the arm are trapped. There's no elbow escape, there's no kipping escape, there's no bridging escape. It's incredibly stable. It means you can stay in top position. And so the biggest fear that most people have with mounted triangles, the fear that you're going to lose top position and end up on bottom with nothing, is gone. And you can use that second pivot to ensure that the finish is still going to keep you in top position. You don't have to commit your shoulders and back to the mat as you do with the standard methods. That double pivot is my personal favorite way of doing mounted triangles. I'm not trying to tell you it's the only way. It's just my personal favorite for the reasons that I've just outlined. All the other methods are highly effective and have been used for a long time by very good people at the highest levels. But this one here, I believe, has the tactical and mechanical advantages over the others. Spend some time, drill it, even though it's not the most pleasant thing to drill. Get to that quasi triangle mount position. Learn to shift your weight and use your hands on the floor as base. Learn to continuously pull up on the head. Guys, how many times have we seen this principle of pulling up on the head from mounted position? Okay, all of the major finishes involve it. So make sure that's something that's constantly on your mind as you're attacking from mount, and you'll be highly successful attacking with these methods. Guys, I want you all to get very, very good at this knee slide method of entering into triangles from the mounted position. The understanding that we're working with here is that there is some risk, right? You're mounted on someone. It's tough mentally to go from one of the most dominant, high-scoring positions in the sport to possibly ending up on your back with no longer a top position. So if we're going to make the commitment to a mounted triangle, it's got to be the safest possible method. As I've said earlier in this video, I'm a huge advocate of knee slide methods. They are intrinsically tighter than step over methods. They are intrinsically more stable. The way that I want you to understand them is in terms of a crucial intermediary position where you have what we call a mounted head and arm position. This gives you tremendous stability, much more stable than step over methods. And it gives you a lot of fine attacking options that we'll be looking at very soon in this video. So let's just spend a little bit of extra time just looking at this mounted head and arm. What's so special about it? Why it's an important part of your understanding and development to getting a rock solid mounted triangle. Okay, when we looked at step over methods, guys, you'll remember that we came up on people and we were on one knee. This is an intrinsically unstable position. In addition, there's a lot of space involved so that my opponent could pull his elbow into that space. The way you get this move to work is through speed, okay? And if I move fast enough, yeah, I can get through it into my lock. Now, speed is good the first couple of times you try it. And maybe you've got some surprise value or whatever, the guy doesn't expect it, and then bang, it's on, okay? But once you get a reputation as someone who likes mounted triangles, people are going to anticipate. And anticipation will almost always beat speed. Okay, if they know ahead of time that you're probably going to hit the mounted triangle, and let's face it, it's pretty damn obvious, right? You've slid up to a high mounted position, you put one leg, you're pushing the wrist down, guess what's coming next? They're going to start pulling that elbow in. So a much more secure way of operating is for us to get inside our training partner and force his arm down to the mat and put our knee over. Okay, now this is a decent position, but it's not what we're looking for. We're going to put our hand on the mat and we're going to lift our training partner's head so that I create space behind the head. Again, we're going back to that theme that we're always lifting the head from mounted position to go into our attacks. Then from here, I'm just going to knee slide right behind my training partner. That knee slide turns the corner. I don't go forward, I turn the corner. So my knees come towards each other. So from the mounted position, first things first, I got to get his elbow outside my hip, and then I got to force his hand down to the mat. I use my head as a base of support. Don't have your head up here somewhere. Head down, knee slide straight over. Post. From here I lift and I turn the corner just like so. So in a sense, I'm mounted. But I'm mounted in a very unique way. I'm mounted with my opponent's head wedged off the mat. So if he went to bridge, it's very difficult for him to do so. He has no contact with my hips, so I barely feel his bridge. If he goes to pull his arm out, it's very easy for me to control it in place. The only way he could pull it is this way. So I just put my hand on the tricep. I can use either hand. I can use my hands on the base for support. Okay, so it's very stable here. You can posture up and lift the head. It's a very stable position. If he goes to wildly twist and turn left and right, I barely feel it. And it's very easy from here to go into the various moves that we'll be looking at later on in this video. Okay, but everything comes out of this position. We're mounted. We put our knee over the top. Then I lift, and then I knee slide around the corner. And that is our position. Okay, very stable. It's like a mount around the head and the arm. So instead of being mounted around his torso, we're mounted around the head and the arm. When he goes to move around, incredibly tough. And very easy for us now to start going into all those finishes that we favor in this position. Okay? That's the position that I want you to be able to get to. If you can use that as your intermediary position, it will function as a halfway house between the mounted position and the triangle finish. It will give you tremendous stability. It will give you the use of your hands to lift the head. It will give you posts on either side of the body. And it will give you an ability to pivot into triangles in various different directions. That's the position that I want you to master for all of the knee slides. I'm going to show how we tie it in with the 4-step system that we've been looking at. One more time, Placido. Okay, the 4-step system that we've been looking at is the idea everything begins with an underhook. So Placido's in a good disciplined arm position here. We focus on getting exposure of the tricep. If I can expose the tricep and get to this position here, cross face and hand on the floor with the underhook, we can start walking everything up north. Okay? Then from here we get into the single chest wrap, where I have one arm between my arms and my opponent's face is locked up in the wrap of my arms, chest to chest, like so. Now from here we start coming forward on our training partner, knee sliding up and bringing our knee over our training partner's shoulder and bicep. As a result, we're in the perfect position now to start taking our knee around the corner. And there we have it. We're pinched in and we're in this ultimate mount position. We have complete control of your training partner. It's going to be easy for us now to sweep our foot around the corner and start going through into our favorite attacking positions and getting to our locks. You can see the whole time we're doing this, one more time, Placido, at no point is there a need for speed. At no point is there a need for speed. Unlike step over methods where there really is a need for speed. Okay? In a step over method, I'm inherently unstable here. There's a lot of space. And if I'm not fast in that quick transition, boom, straight in, all kinds of bad things can happen. You could just pull this elbow inside, all kinds of bad things. Okay? But when we use this underhook, coming up, elbow separation, and locking in like so, it's going to be pretty easy for us now. Just a knee slide right in over the top. Okay, it's going to be pretty easy for us now to turn the corner and get into this head and arm mounted position. And as a result, it's going to be pretty easy for us to touch our foot around the corner, switch off, use that forward bias. And as a result, we can lock up the figure of 4 and get into our strangles. At no point did I have to rush it. At no point was there obvious space for my opponent to pull his elbow through. Using that mounted head and arm as an intermediary position between the mount position and ultimately the triangle position that you seek greatly cuts down on the amount of space your opponent has to operate and the amount of speed that you need to get into those positions. Use that as your method of getting into mounted triangles, and you'll have a lot of success and a lot of confidence that you'll stay on top as you go for your moves, and you won't have to surrender bottom position from top position. What I'm trying to sell you guys on is this idea that the mounted head and arm forms this incredible bridge between the mounted position and the mounted triangle. You can use the mounted head and arm position to put tremendous control over an opponent. There's a sense in which it's kind of like the ultimate mounted position. You're so high up on the guy's chest, you're literally over his throat, that no amount of bridging is going to help him. There's no elbow escape and there's no kipping escape. So you completely shut down his escapes, and at the same time, you're incredibly stable. The wedges set around his head are so tight that it's almost impossible for him to pull his arm free, and there's very little he can do in terms of just scrambling his way out. So it's an incredibly tight mounted position, and you're literally a moment away from enacting a very tight and powerful submission hold, the mounted triangle. So it's my earnest belief that this single position, the mounted head and arm, represents by far and away the best transition into mounted triangles. It can take you from being someone who's a little bit nervous about going from mounted position directly into a triangle. It seems like kind of an advanced, scary move where if you screw it up, everything goes wrong and you lose the best position in the sport, to one where you can reliably go in with great confidence and finish people with mounted triangles. Now, here's an interesting thing. When you get to the mounted head and arm, you got two directions you can go. And they're both fucking awesome, okay? But they're just different. I want you to be good at both. So, let's look at a situation where we'll start now. Okay.
All right.
We go in here and we get the outside arm position. And however we've done it, we've gone through and we've achieved this basic position. We lift our training partner's head and we come around the corner. So now we are in the mounted head and arm. I have the head and the arm, and you're mounted. Because my knees are well pinched, when he goes to yank his arm out, it's incredibly difficult. When he goes to kip, there's literally nothing to kip into. When he goes to elbow escape, it's just not even there. If he goes to bridge, I barely feel it because I'm so far up on his chest. Now, from here, you've got two ways to go. The first is to use your outside leg. So I hold and I put the opposite hand on the floor. I bring my whole body weight over my right leg so that my left leg is weightless. And as a result, I can touch my left foot to my right knee and close the wedges around him. If I choose the outside foot, then we have to lift the head and go into the cross foot position right here, okay? Cross foot gives great finishing options, but you are in an inherently stable position sitting on the chest. So you need your hands for stability. It gives you the advantage that you have Jujigatami as well as triangles. So it gives you two finishing options. Okay, you've got a great Jujigatami position and you've got a great triangle position. The problem is that you're perched in this position for a short period of time. It's not a bad thing because you still do have your arms for stability. Worst case scenario, and you lost your balance, you've still got the lat grip. So that if he came up on top of you, you could still break his arm. You could still go into a triangle, okay? So that's using the outside leg. The other way to go, in my opinion, is the safer. It's to use the inside leg. So from a situation where we've gotten mounted head and arm, now I'm going to lean the other way. So if I lean onto my left leg, my right leg now becomes the weightless leg. And as a result, I can touch my foot to my knee. Now I switch and you have the perfect entry. There is no space. When we go into our forward bias, you go directly into the stranglehold, okay? So please understand, guys, from the mounted head and arm, you can initiate with the outside leg or the inside leg. The outside leg leads to a slightly less stable position, but has a more fun aspect to it that you have more submission holds you can use. The inside leg is inherently more stable and is inherently tighter. So it's, as it were, the wiser option. The triangle it offers is particularly tight. So let's just quickly run through these. Always understand, guys, if I want to make one leg weightless, I have to put my head over the other leg. That's the key to this move. So here we are. Plus, let's come further down the mat, buddy. Okay, from here, we've worked our way up. We've got his knee well wedged, and we've managed to get a knee drive over my training partner's bicep. Now we lift and we turn the angle, okay? Outside leg, I lean over my right leg so that my left leg becomes unweighted and I can touch my foot to my knee and form the perfect closed wedge. This creates a situation where I can elevate and cross. From the cross, here or here, we're in the perfect position to go into triangles or arm bars, okay? I just turn back the other way, and from here, we have vicious arm bars and very tight triangles. This stands in contrast to situations where we turn the corner, and now I lean the other way. I lift the head and I touch my foot to my knee. Now you get the perfect entry into triangles with very, very little space. You still have good armbar attacks, but it's overall tighter. Inside leg is generally a tighter way to operate. Okay. Now my head comes down, leg comes up, and we get the perfect stranglehold. Okay. Now, one more time, Placido, I apologize. I'm going to demonstrate how all of this comes out of the 4-step system so that you're tight the whole way through from start to finish with no space for your opponent. This is how I would want you in a best case scenario to demonstrate the move to me in a competitive situation. Okay, you've got a stud opponent who knows all the basic escapes, does them well, and is mentally tough. You need the tightest possible way of going from mounted position all the way through to your triangle. This is what we'd be looking to do. So, we'll just change the angle a little bit. Knee down. Okay. He's in good position. We bring the hand down. We get to an initial position like so. We start walking the arm up. We shrug it by, shrugging, and get into a position where I can bring my head down and start that action of sliding in over the top. From that slide, we're always looking to take our body up into this position here. Okay. First finish from here involves bringing my weight over one leg to unweight the other and touching. And as a result, we find ourselves in the perfect position to attack. Okay. Second option from here, arguably the preferred option. From this position, I put my weight over the other knee, like so. So this leg becomes unweighted. And as a result, I can touch my foot to my knee. And as a result, we can easily bring our body into a forward bias that locks up a very, very tight triangle for the finish. And that is how we use inside or outside leg from the mounted head and arm. You can go in either direction. The inside leg is generally a little bit tighter, a little more conservative. The outside leg leaves a little bit more space, but gives you some interesting angles of attack to work with. Get good at both. And if you can carry your whole attack through from the mounted position, working the 4-step system to get up into the single chest ramp, and then going into the mounted head and arm, and using that as the intermediary position between the mount and the mounted triangle. Then you get 2 directions, going with either inside leg or outside leg, and from there, you're going to finish a lot of people. We've been going through a lot of stuff on the mounted triangle, and as we were doing this, Placido was mentioning, hey, John, all this time I've only been using the step over method, and he's curious about using the knee slide method. So Placido, this would be a cool time to show, because people might be nervous about trying mounted triangles. They're like, okay, I want to try this, but I've never done it before. I'm just going to coach Placido. He's never done this before. He's going to go through the mounted triangle using the knee slide method, so you can just show how easy it is for someone to pick up and learn. Makes sense?
Yeah, typically just do a step over.
Yeah. So let's start. I'll be down. Placido, you start mounted. And from this position, you start working my elbow up so that you can take your knee higher, up like so, and get a good plant. Now, Placido, your whole goal now is to get your head to the floor, and you're going to start, you can switch arms now, buddy. Good. Now, you're going to clear my hand down to the mat, and you're going to go over with the knee. Good. Now, Placido, you're going to pivot your right knee along the ground. Nope, right knee through underneath, and lift my head up. Nope. You're going to bring this knee here underneath the head, just like so.
Okay,
good.
yes.
Now, drive your knee in this direction. Good. Now, keep your weight more over me. Don't be afraid. Don't worry, I'm not going to break. 2 knees on the mat, Placido. Good. This is your position. Now, sit up straight and see how this position is kind of like an ultimate mount, okay? There's simply no kipping escape from here. I'm nowhere near your hips. There's no kipping escape. I can't elbow escape. My arm's trapped here and this arm is completely taken out of the picture. And I can't bridge because I have no hip-to-hip contact. So the 3 major escapes are gone, okay? I can't put my head on the floor because of this knee, okay? So you're in a fantastic position. Conceivably, the only thing I could do here is try and get my knee underneath this knee. But if you pinch your knees, but I wouldn't pinch this one, Placido, I would bring this knee further around.
Yes,
okay. So now I'm completely stuck. Okay. Now, at this point, you want to start putting this hand on my head and lifting up and putting your other hand on the floor. Find the floor. And now you're going to put all your weight on this knee. So this one becomes light. Beautiful. Now touch your knee with your left foot. Are you touching?
Yes.
Good. Now from here, lift my head a second time and switch so that you can bring this one around and cross your ankles. Beautiful. Are your ankles crossed behind me?
Yes, sir.
Good. Sitting forward now. Putting your weight on me. Good. Now put this hand on the mat and shift your weight on board. Make the pivot and rock. Good. Now take just a little heat off the triangle so we can talk. Good. Now from this position, I'm completely trapped. Put your forehead on the mat. Do you have a triangle lock, Placido?
It's a looser one. But...
Just unlock it for now. Now, plant your head on the mat so that my head comes off the floor. Good. Okay. Now, as your head comes down and mine comes up, look how easy it is for you to lock your triangle. Good.
Yes.
Now, from here, you can submit me. Just good. Good. Now, lock it and come back into a mounted position. Good. And now, how would you play from here?
Hold on a second, Danaher. I'm
Danaher?
kind of enjoying this position.
I'm not John anymore. I'm just Danaher.
Hold on, I could see myself.
Oh
doing
my
a lot
Lord.
of things from
Oh
here.
my Lord.
You ever seen this one? That's a sprinkler, John. That's what that's called, John. The sprinkler.
Motherfucker.
Hold on here.
Oh my God. I'm not gonna let you do that. No. Placido, I'm gonna fucking kill you. I'm not gonna let you do that. Placido, you better fucking kill me. Because if I ever get out of this, I'm gonna fucking kill you. Now, we've been looking at a very large number of methods into triangle. The basic split that we're trying to push upon is the idea of step over methods and knee slide methods with a general preference for knee slides. Most of what we've done has come out of some form of control grip on our training partner. And I've always believed the mounted position in general, it's a good position just by itself, but only when you start to use the 4 control grips that we've looked at throughout this video does it truly come into its own in submission grappling. It's a powerful, powerful submission position. So, putting all of this together now, let's have a look at another form of control grip besides the single chest wrap that we do most of our entries out of. From a situation where I start off with an underhook, we push the arm down, we get to the underhook, and then from here we start that action of walking the arm up and north like so. But there's going to be times, as we saw earlier, that we can't get our opponent's fist off our back and the hand gets caught behind the back. Under those circumstances, we've seen this idea of making a switch into the far trap underhook, so that as Placido tries to hold on to his arm, it's just so difficult to hold on once we use the pressure of this very, very valuable position. Now we seize the wrist and we trap everything in front, just like so. So when Placido tries to take his arm out, it's exceptionally difficult. This makes for a relatively easy feed into our training partner's arm like so. Presumably your opponent's second arm will be in a pretty strong defensive position like this. And as a result, we're going to be able to lever our training partner through his elbow and hold on like so. We're going to pop up just like this. So we end up in a seated mounted position, controlling our training partner's arm. If Placido tries to turn back into me, it's a very, very difficult thing when we lift this arm up like so. Now, we're going to step over our training partner's bicep. If he's holding on to his own arm and defending himself, we may have to push the fist out just like so, and that's going to create a simple step over motion. From that step over, we're going to give an initial lift that brings our opponent's head off the mat. That's a theme I'm sure you've all remembered as we've gone through this video, and that lift enables me to get my calf muscle onto my training partner's collarbones just like so. Now I'm going to push the hand through, and I'm going to grab a hold of my own shin. So we have a nice hand assist in place. I'm going to put my hand down on the floor for balance, and then from this position, we're going to drive our knee down to the mat and go around the corner. We're going to emphasize our forward bias, leaning forward like so, and take our opponent's head off the mat. So once again, we can lock up the figure of 4. As Placido tries to work his way out, he's in a full mounted triangle. And from here, we can just squeeze for a very tight, solid finish. So instead of sliding in or stepping over directly from the usual single chest wrap, now we're using an arm wrap to enter into the triangle. Very useful method. So we're mounted, that's good, but it won't be great until we start employing our control grips. First, and that step involves getting to the underhook. So we push an arm down, and then from here, we bring our hands through underneath. We get a hold of our training partner, we lift and get to that crossface. Now, from here, we start that action of walking the arm up and north over head, just like so. From these kinds of positions, arm over my back, from these kinds of positions, sometimes it could be a challenge to get the hand in front. If we see that as the case, then from here, we'll get to that far trap underhook. No matter how strong Placido makes his arm now, I can just drive across his body and free that hand out, putting tremendous pressure over my training partner. We seize his wrist, we pull everything in, and we end up with a classic arm wrap, just like so. For this one, we're not going to figure 4 the arm wrap. We just stay in like so. From here, I get a hold of my training partner's elbow and I make that conversion into the seated mount position. One knee up like this. As he goes in to defend himself, we're just going to push our training partner's wrist down. We're going to step over our training partner like so. And we're going to focus on lifting Placido's head off the mat. I push the hand on by and I get to my hand assist. From here, my legs come up high onto my training partner's collarbones. Then in one motion, we're going to push our leg around the corner. We're going to lean forward to take his head off the mat and expose his neck to our triangle. As he tries desperately to defend himself in this position, it's so hard, and we get a good finish. If, for whatever reason, he was so physically powerful that he was able to roll through on us and push us through, it would mean nothing. You end up in the perfect finishing position from underneath. From here, we get to the win. So, this represents yet another method of entering into the triangle from the mounted position. Always it's that same modus operandi. We go through our 4 essential steps. You start mounted, the basic mount position, establish your underhook. You penetrate underneath your opponent's arm so that you can get that elbow penetration through the underhook. Then go into phase 2, which involves separating the elbow up and above your training partner's shoulder line. As we walk the arm up, we then make a switch into the far side trap, and we have the underhook and far trap. We use that to roll our training partner's fist and expose it to one of the other of the 4 control grips we use, the arm wrap. From the arm wrap, we pull the head off the floor, step over into the triangle, and use the hand assist that we so often favor to lock a set of closed wedges around our opponent's head and arm, and then lean forward so we can pull our foot off the mat and lock a tight figure of 4 and get into our finishing position. If you can follow those very simple steps, that's just one more way in which you can make yourself very dangerous indeed with the triangle from the mounted position. We've been through a whole bunch of attacks from the mounted position leading to the triangles. I'm always in my videos conscious of the idea that jiu-jitsu should work for every body type. And there may be some of you watching this video saying, hey, I like what I'm seeing here, but dude, I'm 5'5" and I'm 200 pounds. I'm never going to lock a triangle on anybody. If that's the case, there's a nice move that you can use. I know where you're coming from. I've got short legs for my height. There's a nice substitute using a lat 3/4 Jujikatami attack. This is a specialty of mine. I'm going to say, guys, that if you are shorter and thicker in the legs, I generally recommend that you go more with knee slide methods of entering into triangles from the mount rather than step over methods. They typically work better for short, thick legs. So we'll take it from a situation where we've managed to get inside. We've taken our training partner's elbow to the outside position, and we've done a good job of knee sliding up close like so. From here, we know that if we can put our opponent's hand down on the floor and hit a simple knee slide over the top, we can start building for height and turning around the corner, getting our knee all the way in behind our training partner. So the idea is I take my opponent's head off the floor and I focus first on getting my knee in. So that Placido is caught between my two pinched knees. This is our start position. So the ideal position we want to be in any kind of knee slide attack is one where we get our knee over our training partner's shoulder. We build for height, and our first motion is this. We catch our training partner in this critical position. Now, if we're shorter in the legs and the triangle is a difficult move for you to hit, here's a nice substitute. We're going to bring our foot up and lock. We're going to hit that same crisscross action that we saw earlier. But from here, instead of going down to the floor, we're going to pivot and turn into this position, and we're going to keep our training partner's lat muscle locked up like so. And then from here, we're going to step our foot over the top and lock our ankles. Okay. Now, it's not really realistic to finish from positions like this. I'm not going to say it's impossible. It can happen. But if Placido's resisting with everything he's got, we're probably going to go down to the floor. Even as Placido comes up, we have our legs locked. Even if he did manage to slip his head almost free, it wouldn't matter. He goes to stand up and pick me up off the floor. From here, he goes right into a very, very strong arm break. Okay? Now, Placido, just lie down, champ. A word to the wise. Do you remember when we did the Juji Gatame that we talked about the right rule? In a basic Juji, if I have Placido's right arm, I want to take his right elbow over my right hip and his right hand towards my right shoulder. Okay, and that gives us the best breaking conditions. That all changes if we just pivot around Placido when we have a triangle armbar. In a triangle armbar, I always want to take, standing up Placido, I want to take his right elbow over my left hip. If I try and take it over the right hip, it's not there. Triangle arm bars are 100% different. Instead of taking his right arm over my right hip, the right rule, in a triangle arm bar, as opposed to a conventional arm bar, we want to take it over the opposite hip. And the best way to do that is to tuck it. Okay? Now, if you've got short legs and you can't lock a full figure of four, just cross your ankles and put your knee on the crown of his head. Here. Placido, just go to yank your arm out.
Yeah, right.
It's impossible. And then from here, we just hit it and break it. Okay? This is the best way for people with short, thick legs to work out of triangle positions. Stuff the arm behind your lat. Use the left-right rule, no longer the right rule. It changes when you're in a senkaku or triangle, and go for a hard arm break instead. Okay? Because now you only have to cross your feet, which people with short legs can easily do. You no longer have to get the full figure of four. Okay? So let's have a look at this from another angle. Okay. We've got a talented opponent underneath us, and we do a good job of going in and getting that initial position where my knee comes all the way up. From here, I go through, I bring my knee over the top. My first thing from this position is to pivot and knee slide like so. So that my two knees are on the floor and Placido's arm and head are caught. So when Placido goes to move out, it's incredibly difficult. Very, very stable position. Now from here, I bring my leg around and I touch my own knee. I lift the head and cross my ankles. From the cross, my opposite hand comes through and we change our body position. But because I have short legs, can't lock a triangle. So from here, as we go back, look, I just pass my feet over and just cross my ankles. Placido, could you pivot me around the other way? Good. Now, from here, with my crossed ankles in place, make strong, resistant body, I just spread my knees and break. If he stands up on me, I just scoop inside. I'll leave and let him stand all the way up, and we just open up, and you get a very, very strong break. Okay? Let's do a little experiment, Placido. Without my feet, even without my leg over the crown of the head, just here. Okay? Stand up, Placido. Just pick me up off the floor. It's very, very robust. Okay? It's an incredibly strong grip. Try to pull your hand out, buddy.
Nope.
Very, very difficult. I just put my hand on my own shin. Now, even as he goes to yank me around, I just scoop inside, tip in, and there's your arm break. Okay? So, Placido, I think you'll agree, it's enormously difficult to pull your arm free.
When I pull, I feel like it's
you
tighter.
feel it's going to break your own arm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I didn't want to pull, you know?
Yeah. I think, in my experience, this is the best way for people with short, thick legs that really struggle with triangles to use the mounted position and use the same knee slide setups that we use for triangles. If your body's just not built for triangles, and that applies to a large percentage of people, or you just feel like, dude, my opponent is just, I'm fine with triangles on normal people, but my opponent's got shoulders the size of boulders. I just can't do it on him. Then this is a really good alternative. So let's quickly run through it again. Here we are. We work our way in, and we get our first knee all the way up in that familiar blocking position. I put my head down, knee goes across. Now we're looking for that perfect pivot position that locks Placido's head and arm in place. I unweight one leg so I can touch my knee and my foot together. I lift and cross my ankles. Now I sit back in the opposite direction. If my legs are too short for triangles, then from here as I move around the corner, I just go over the top and cross my ankles. Because I have a lat grip, it's so hard for Placido to yank out. When he goes to try, he'll break his own arm. And then from here to finish it, I just raise my pelvis. Okay? Always remember, guys, when you lock in this position with any kind of Senkaku or three-quarter juji, you change from breaking over the right elbow over the right hip to the right elbow over the left hip. So be cognizant of that fundamental difference in the armbar based on whether you have the Senkaku, triangle, or three-quarter position versus conventional jujis, okay? Just to make that really obvious for you again. Classic juji gatame, just like so. With my opponent on his back, we always take the right elbow over the right hip. Even three-quarter with my opponent on his back, it's right elbow over right hip. But if an opponent comes up on top of me and we're working from a three-quarter grip like so into Senkaku variations, my feet crossed, instead of, because I've got short legs, we're not looking at full Senkaku, we're just crossing our feet. From here, we take it, his right arm, right elbow, over my left hip. So when he goes to drag out, it gets caught in the geometry of my lat muscle. I put my hand on my own leg, not like this. He goes to yank out now, he can thread his hand free. I want his hand caught behind my armpit, so I lock it in place. My feet, back heel, strong, knees splayed. Placido goes to shake his way out. Nope, he's not going anywhere. Don't have your legs straight. That's when they get out. Make sure from here, the feet, back heel. Pull everything in. He goes to yank out. It's tough. And then from here, hips up, and it's done. Okay? In this way, people with short, thick legs can use the same method of operation that I've been showing for triangles, even when their body isn't suited for triangles, and go into this version of Juji Gatame. It's somewhere between Juji and triangle. Okay, it's just crossed feet instead of full figure of four. So no matter how short and thick your legs, you can get this one to work.